Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our session on driving adoption for Microsoft Teams. We're so happy to see a full room. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy Ignite schedule to join us today. My name is Kara Wanagatimu. I run the Patterns and Practices section of Microsoft Teams, and I'm joined on stage by Dan Stevenson.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dan. I work in Microsoft Teams. I work on a chunk of the product group, managing our Teams and Channels investments, IT admin, user onboarding, verticals like Teams for Education, and some of our new growth initiatives.
That's great. So we have a lot of great information for you today and many resources that we've launched here at Ignite. We're going to spend the first part of our session talking about the resources that are available and what we've learned ever since the general availability of Microsoft Teams in March. And then the last half, we're going to be joined by some distinguished speakers on our panel that'll give you some real-world guidance, and you'll be able to ask questions to learn more about their experience of driving adoption. The most important thing that I can land with you today, and that we really believe as a product group, is that the successful adoption of Microsoft Teams is not just about technology, right? Collaboration is a human activity. And so it's very important to not get over-indexed on the features and capabilities, but to also remember that you're dealing with humans who inherently don't like change. So they have to understand what's valuable for them in this. Putting the users at the center of this transformation really helps you to deal with all of the challenges that any change brings, especially if you're along the journey of digital transformation like we are at Microsoft. So go ahead.
Yeah, okay. No, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about Teams. How many of you have actually tried out Teams, used it, deployed it, know how to spell it? Okay, awesome. So you know that Teams was the chat-centered workspace in Office 365 and is now the hub for teamwork. We've graduated our marketing message largely because of the evolution of the scope of Microsoft Teams. Just to reiterate for those who haven't been with us for too long on this journey, some core parts of Teams. It's built around chat. We consider chat to be this very organic, fluid, informal way to communicate, reach, and share decisions very quickly. We add calling and meetings, and I'll talk a little about the announcements we made earlier this week in a second, but we add calling and meetings because not everything that people do in a conversation is over text. We also make the text a little more fun if you've seen some of those features. We integrate with everything in the Office 365 ecosystem. Files from SharePoint, task management from Planner, video streaming from Microsoft Stream, data analysis from Power BI, admin UI through the Microsoft O365 Admin Center, compliance through the Protection Center. We make the application very customizable and extensible. There are a number of sessions this week, including labs on how to build your own bot, build your own tab. Huge ecosystem, increasing pretty much every day of the number of applications and services that can integrate into Microsoft Teams. And with some of the announcements made earlier today on the evolution of the administration experience, we're also providing more customization capabilities for admins to tune the different types of Teams experiences that they want to provide to different populations of their users. And then finally, of course, it's an Office 365 service. It's natural and important that it has all the compliance and security capabilities you would expect. Every message is archived, searchable, there for rediscovery. All the important events in Teams are audited and logged, so you can run a report later on and find that. We support device security, we support encryption, everything you would expect in an Office 365 service.
We want to make sure that people understand that Teams is the unified productivity experience for Office 365. So as you're thinking about making this transition, you're really shifting the center of gravity for your user community. How many of you have more than 10 browser windows open to do your job every day? Right? Okay, yeah. How much do we like that? We don't. We've been dealing with these siloed experience for a very long time. And as Microsoft, we've been listening to your feedback. We've heard you ask for this simplified experience, and you wanted the capabilities of Office 365 integrated together. Many people ask me, what tool when? We have this conversation an awful lot. And for me, that's not actually the right question. It's what does the user need to accomplish, right? We can plug these things together now through the unified experience of Microsoft Teams. And it's flexible for each team because not every team needs to work together in the same way. When you take a look at this hub here, you can see that we think of the different capabilities coming in through that user experience. So Dan already mentioned Outlook and Exchange and Yammer for those targeted and or broad conversations. We've got SharePoint and OneDrive. We have meeting experiences and voice and video through Microsoft Teams and obviously Skype for Business as those two products begin to come together. Office Pro Plus gives you all that co-authoring capability, right? And if you're not using co-authoring with chat embedded, you are missing out on a way to really keep people from emailing around spreadsheets. This has been one of the goals of my 30 years in the collaboration space, is to get people to stop emailing around documents and trying to collaborate them at the same time. But it doesn't stop there with our extensibility platform. So all of those line of business applications that you have can now be integrated into that experience as well. What we know, though, from working with customers, and that's through the history of our collaboration work, is that there are particular ways to drive a successful engagement. We work with the Fast Track organization. Fast Track capabilities are available to anyone who has Office 365 licenses over 150 seats. And these folks will help you do this planning and deployment and onboarding to Microsoft Teams and other cloud workloads. But the important thing is this phasing that we have here. Identifying stakeholders and early adopters. Those folks are the people in your organization who are enthusiastic about change, who want to try something new, and who can see the benefit. They are your friends, and they are a community within your organization that you should be cultivating and bringing together to help you drive this change forward. But having that community and its enthusiasm needs to be married with business outcomes. Business outcomes and a prioritized list of those from those various stakeholders in your company are important so that you can have early wins and show the usefulness of investing time and money in this new experience. Then, of course, you go through the technical planning phase. You may have a security group, your IT partners, folks who are working on deployment of the service itself, and then you move into a pilot. We have a lot of great information about those things and from the real-world examples we're going to share with you later. But at the end of the day, making sure that you are measuring the changes that you're having and sharing those measurements and key wins within your organization are going to help you to continue to drive this change forward.
Yeah, so speaking of measurements, I went to an engineering school, so I really like data. I spent a lot of time doing charts and graphs and MATLAB and all sorts of things. I haven't done that in about 20 years, but we do have some very rich telemetry that we use to run the operation of Microsoft Teams. And I've scrubbed customer names, I've scrubbed unit numbers. We don't talk about our active user numbers, you may pick that up. I've scrubbed time out of this. What I have done, though, is taken the active user growth curves for two representative customers. These are customers that we know, that we've worked with, we understand their story, what their adoption trajectory has been for Teams. And it's very interesting to see, with one of these customers, it was very much organic. There were some gates that IT put in to allow certain things and disallow other things. And then it just kind of burned through the organization, grew virally as different groups got into Teams, created a team, brought more people into that team. And then over time, another group came in, another user came in. It just percolated at actually a really nice clip throughout the organization. I didn't put time on here, but you kind of know when we did our GA, and you kind of know what today is, so you can see kind of the rate of change by at least percentage there. And it is zero-based, because it's an honest scientific graph. The purple line is a little different. That's a company, where they had Teams mostly off. It was in a pilot stage for a while. They were testing out some of the capabilities, making sure it met their security requirements, making sure they had the appropriate change management plan in place before they opened it up. And then when they opened it up, it wasn't an organic evolution or viral growth throughout the company. It was something they specifically programmed for in the company. They held training sessions and lunch and learn sessions and webcasts and posters and all sorts of things. And you'll see some examples in a minute of other companies that have done that. And they pushed Teams out as their standard for collaboration and now, of course, for communications as well. Very different paths. They both happen to converge at the same number, but that's just a trick of changing the scale on the graph. But very different paths to get to where they are in terms of their growth. Neither of these is wrong, neither of these is right. They're just good examples of how different organizations can take different approaches to how they encourage and drive adoption within their company. Let's talk a little about, if you wouldn't mind, about some examples of how customers have been telling their users about moving on to Microsoft Teams. The top left, we have a customer, you can kind of guess this is in an education environment. They have an FAQ on Teams, and then they have a little post-it note next to it about, I think, how to find your O365 username. Reminds me of my elementary school days, but we mostly talked about cutting in line and finishing your lunch on time. So we've come a long way. This is, by the way, for those who don't know, Microsoft Teams has a special version for education, and we've seen really big uptake among educational institutions, both in the traditional classroom environment with faculty and students, as well as just among faculty and staff. Lower left is a poster that one of our best customers we've talked to a lot, Text 100, has used. They actually had a series of 7 of these posters they put up around their different sites and facilities when they turned Teams on and really pushed the adoption of Teams within the organization. It wasn't, I'm not going to tell you whose data it was in the previous slide, but it wasn't them. But their adoption is very modeled after that type of a program where they tested it out internally and then they were ready to go and push the button and then make a really big push across the company on that. On the top right, we have a video. It's actually the one that was at the top of my colleague's Twitter responses to a question she asked about how do you do adoption. It's a video in Spanish about how to learn how to do meetings in Teams. They use that internally, and then they just put that up on the internet so anybody could see that. If you poke around on YouTube or Bing, you'll see quite a few of these. And then the right, bottom right is an FAQ from a company in Los Angeles where they built a bunch of these tech talks and FAQs to share internally with their users about how to adopt Teams. The middle is some other examples we heard from our customers on. I think the key thing here is they are taking a very deliberate approach to this change. And it's not, as Caruana was saying in the beginning, this is not only and really not about a technology change. This is about a change in how people work and how they work together, not just the application, the particular placement of the buttons on the screen, the particular app that they're switching into, but when a group of people move from communicating and collaborating in a particular set of tools before moving into an application like Teams or Slack or HipChat or several of these others, it's a very different model once they move in. Everything becomes more open, everything is shared, their mindset around when and how they communicate, who they communicate with, how they get people's attention, everything changes in that regard. And so I think it's really important, these lessons we've heard from our customers, the lessons we've learned internally as well at Microsoft, it's important to recognize that this is that significant of a change. This is not just Lync 2013 to Skype for Business 2013, different shade of blue, maybe 1 or 2 of the buttons moved in the UI, the label change in the UI. This is a completely new way of working. Let's talk through a few examples of that. If I may bring up the next slide.
Sure.
Let's see. Okay, yeah, so this is some research. This is actually based on some research we've done on the different types of teams that organizations have used successfully in Microsoft Teams across different types of departments or scenarios, user groups. I won't read everything on the slide, but you can get a general sense that whether it's customer support or engineering, finance, sales, marketing, HR, operations, there's broad utility for this type of software application. Now, a lot of folks are familiar that these applications, group collaboration apps, started in the development world, software development, DevOps, IT ops. That makes a ton of sense, right? These are users who are going to be very fashion forward in terms of the applications they're using. They've been using chat and kind of high volume, low length messaging back and forth for a while. They've been collaborating out in the open for a while, whether it's in pair programming or Scrum or things like that. They're very used to having these types of open collaborative group conversations. And of course, they have a lot of applications they're using, especially in a DevOps or IT ops world, that it makes a ton of sense to get all that into a single pane of glass. So that's a very natural place to start, but it's definitely not the end. And one of the things we've seen as we took our message out to customers, many of whom have been using, among other competitors, Slack, when we talked to them, it was very interesting to see the transition over the course of a customer conversation from just development to going into HR, going into finance, going into operations, and so on. Let me talk about a few common characteristics that we see across teams to make them successful. And as Caruana was talking about the evolution of choosing a pilot team, starting to drive adoption, and then growing from there, These apply to the pilot team. These also apply to widespread adoption within the organization. The first thing is making sure that you have the right focused group of people together to be on that team. These have to be people who are used to working together. They have a shared purpose, some kind of a shared mission that is driving them forward, something they are collaborating on, something they need to work together on. It seems kind of self-evident to do that, but very often we will see people jump into Microsoft Teams and say, okay, great, my org chart looks like this tree structure, so I'll make a team for each section of the org chart, or maybe a team and then a channel for each section of the org chart. It may be that that's how people are working together. Usually it's not. Usually people work across the org charts, at least we try to, where different organizations will have people on a V team or working together on a project, or maybe the whole company really is in one team and they're all working together that way. The shared purpose is also very important. They have to have a reason to get together and talk on a daily, on an hourly basis. Otherwise, what's the point of having a low-friction communications medium? What's the point of having this out in the open? A classical bad example of a team to bring into Microsoft Teams is the, I guess I'll say the archetypical Microsoft LT. Microsoft Engineering Leadership Team, a vice president of engineering, maybe an executive vice president of their direct reports. They don't have a lot in common. They're out running their areas, building their products. They have people who they need to work with in their organizations. They get together, maybe once a month to argue about budget or headcount, but there's not a whole lot. I'm exaggerating, of course, if anybody in my organizational chain is watching. But they get together periodically to work on a few things, but it's not like they're building a PowerPoint deck together or planning an event like Ignite together. So it's really important that that team has a shared purpose. We do want LTs to be in there, but a lot of times people will say, okay, I'll get it on my, the chief of staff will get it for their leadership team, and they'll get them working, and that becomes their proof point for whether or not Teams is right for their organization. And that's the wrong place to do that proof point. Find a team that's planning an event. Oh my gosh, we've done so many events now, small events, medium events, large events like this one, and Teams is a lifesaver for managing that, whether it's just the private chat, just, hey, have you updated the deck yet kind of thing, and making sure, regardless of what device I'm on, I'm in that conversation, or it's a group conversation where we've shared our countdown schedule, or we've shared the latest marketing message that we have to use when we're asked a question about Skype for Business. It's really great to have this capability of Teams when you have that kind of a shared project like an event. So getting the people together, giving them a shared purpose, that's number one. Number two, you need to go all in. The group of people who are working together on this team have to make a commitment, or perhaps somebody makes the commitment on their behalf, but they are going all in. They are taking the communications that they as a group used to have, typically in Outlook, although it could have been in somewhere else, and committing to move those into Teams. That was very easy for me to say. It's very, very, very hard to do. We come from a company that is very email-centric, not surprising. I still spend a fair amount of my day sending and receiving emails. I probably send and receive 10 to 20 emails a day, much less than the 100 to 200 in the past. But within my own team, it's all in Teams. And sometimes somebody will send an email and we just almost ignore it. We do a little self-policing to make sure, we remind somebody, hey, that conversation needs to happen in Teams. But it's really important that everybody goes all in, that you self-police, you have some champions to make sure that you're driving that. That also means that as you're going through adopting Teams for a particular project or purpose, and you encounter something where it's like, oh, that's an Outlook, or that's on my disk, bring that into Teams. Bringing the files in is easy. This is the best front end for SharePoint ever. Every file you share is on SharePoint or OneDrive, depending on whether it's in a team or a private chat. There's no classical attachments. Everything is there in the cloud. It's great. You have an email. You want to get it into the team. We have Email a Channel. Grab that email address. It's now in your autocomplete. You get an interesting email you want to share with the team. Bang, it's there for posterity in that channel, and people can chat about it. You have an application that's sending you an email at 6 a.m. every day with the latest stats on something. Drop that into the channel as well. Just auto-forward that in. Or have that application use a connector, an Office 365 connector, to push that message into the team. Yes, there's some upfront costs required to do that, but it pays off immensely when you have everything that your team is working on within the context of that team communications experience within Teams. Third, when you're setting up your team and you're setting up your organization to use Teams, try to be as open as your organizational culture and your technology constraints will allow. That means try to have conversations in Teams instead of chats when you think that most people will benefit from them. If you can make your Teams public, if it kind of is compatible with the way you work, try and make the Teams public so other people can discover them. When somebody's chatting about something in a private chat, I really try to encourage us, once we've reached kind of a critical mass and it's not something we're going to solve super quick, I encourage us to move it into a channel. You never know when somebody now or in the future is going to need that context, need that file, need that decision you just made. You want to make sure it's shared out in the open. That's an essential value proposition of these types of applications. When you have persistent chat and you have really open communications, you can make decisions very quickly and you can share them very quickly. I had the benefit of, we work in an office tower, not in Redmond, but in Bellevue, which is a city nearby, and we're in a tower. So there's a lot of different organizations on the different floors in the tower. And I was going up in the elevator a couple weeks ago, and I had the cool opportunity to overhear. I like to eavesdrop. It's just kind of, you're in Teams, you see everything. And so I overheard somebody talking, saying, "Oh, how's it going? You're new on the team." It wasn't our group, it was some other group. They said, "Oh yeah, it's actually been really easy to get up to speed because everything's in Teams." And that's great. Everything is there for them. They don't need to go and find a bunch of DLs to join. They don't need to catch up on a bunch of weird hidden context that somebody told somebody, and then they left, and you got to go dig it out. It's all there in the team and available for them. And then the fourth thing I would say, just to reiterate something I said earlier and echoing what Caruana said in the beginning, recognize that this is a change. When you're adopting Teams, when a group is adopting it to do their day-to-day collaboration and communication, be open about that. Recognize, hey, this is a big change. We got to make sure we're staying on top of this. If there's feedback, if there are concerns, let's have champions or ambassadors. Those are great programs that a lot of our customers have done, who will channel that feedback, actually channel it to us. We look at feedback on our user voice feedback system daily. Channel it internally, develop best practices, and share that. This isn't some, quick under the covers change in how we're doing something, and then everybody comes to work and the tools change, but they don't really worry about that. No, this is a big change, and the right way to address that is to be transparent and open, and accept feedback on that as the organization is adopting it. Okay, with that, I believe I'll hand it back to Caruana.
Great, excellent. Thank you, Dan, for all that insight. There's some other key items that you want to be thinking about also as you're driving this change. For those of you who may be IT implementers in this room, one of the things that we always ask customers are, where are you in your cloud journey? Are you deeply invested in SharePoint? Have you done customizations there with metadata and governance solutions? Are you using Yammer in your organization to drive a wide organizational communication? Those things can also be implemented well within Teams, and that integration is sometimes where people get stuck a little bit because they're very focused on that one particular workload. If there's been a great thing about moving into the Microsoft Teams engineering group from working in IT in Microsoft, it's this ability to look across Office 365. We were just having this conversation earlier today when somebody was asking how to do a particular task, and I said, well, have you looked at Flow? And he looked at me and said, oh, I hadn't thought about the other components of Office 365. This is your opportunity to learn about those other components and think broadly when designing these business solutions. And as Dan mentioned, there is a little bit of an upfront cost, but ultimately that productivity gain is going to be very helpful. We know that this is a journey for all of you, and we're in the lucky position of being able to see a lot of these patterns and practices. And so one of the things that we are announcing today is our new hub for all of that data and information. On my next slide. Thank you, sir. And it's a new experience for successwithteams.com. This information, which has been updated about your opportunity to plan and onboard and drive value through Microsoft Teams, is now available in 5 languages. We are constantly enhancing this with more data that we're getting from the field. And as we are going through the rest of this calendar year, we'll be adding industry-specific guidance. So for education, higher education, healthcare, manufacturing, etc. And this is the way that you all will be able to share a lot of the knowledge that you have about what's working for you. And we'll turn that into reusable assets that all of you can use as you're driving adoption. I want to actually hop to my demo of the experience here. Let's go here. All And so you can come into this experience, and there's plenty of getting started information. This is just version 1 that we've released here at Ignite. As you come back, you'll also see that we're going to target this information for various personas, for IT pros, for developers, for change managers. And what's also exciting about being in this team right now is we're taking a special focus on those of you who are driving change in your organization and making sure that you have content that is going to help you land this message. We have the links here, obviously, to the Fast Track team so they can help you with your deployment and additional troubleshooting guidance. I also want to call out this link right here down at the bottom. We've made quite a few announcements this week about the journey from Skype for Business to Teams and what that roadmap is going to look like over time. Of course, in October, we will be updating our public roadmap with more of the Teams features that we're going to be landing. But you can start your journey and get information about that right here from this page. So we know that this is a long journey and there's a lot of information that you will need. So we're doing everything we can to get it to you as soon as possible. We've also updated our Help Center with a lot of additional videos to learn more about the product. And they're scenario-centric, so that means that it's not talking only about Teams, but also Teams in the context of this broader Microsoft 365 productivity experience that we're driving. So it's important to use those videos. Many customers ask us, hey, can we use that on our own site? Of course you can, and that's why it's available here to you. One of the things that this site also calls out is the mobile experience. And another thing that I will evangelize is, as you think about your adoption and deployment of Teams, make sure that you are incorporating the mobile experience. It is a fantastic application. And just as Dan was talking about, even for managing this event, the ability to simply have quick chats on my mobile device with other people in my team in a forum such as this, where they could be literally like a half a mile away. Is this not the biggest place that you've ever been? It's huge. So I'm getting my steps in, but that means that I need to be able to communicate. And I want that communication to be happening in that secure environment. And then I don't have to hop between my text messages and email and all the different pieces. So do think about the mobile application as a part of your deployment. Of course, it's available on all 3 operating systems. So we're going to hop back over here and talk about our next asset that we're also creating. So you may recognize this as a SharePoint communication site. I came from the SharePoint community. I'm a longtime SharePoint lover. And the best thing about Teams is that I can integrate SharePoint directly into my Teams experience. But many people say, hey, how are you driving adoption inside Microsoft? How am I supposed to pull all of these resources together as I tell this story to my users? So Pune Coffin and myself were building this as a downloadable asset that we'll be releasing before the end of the calendar year. And basically what it does is it pulls together the training guidance, the help guidance, and you'll be able to install it in your own SharePoint Online environment and then customize it with your own policies about internet access or mobile device enrollment or whatever else you may want to add. So it gives you a starting point to help your users through this adoption experience, and we'll continue to update it, but we want you to be able to customize it for yourself as well. It'll just give you a starting point for all of that information. One of the things that I like about this site is that we're putting it in the context of the day of the user. When people ask me about that what tool when conversation, they're usually thinking just about the technology. And again, I think it's important to go back and put the user in the context that is the primary goal, right? So I don't know about all of you, but my work day starts before I ever get in my car. The first thing I do in the morning is I grab my mobile phone and I look at my calendar to see what's going to happen in that day. I may need to check chats in Teams. I may need to get ready for a presentation and just look at what the team has built for me, things of that nature. All of that is happening on my mobile device before I leave my home, usually while I'm drinking a cup of coffee. And these examples here from A Day in a Digital Life are built around those sorts of times of day. Right? What do you do when you are, before you ever get in the car? What do you do as you're driving in? One of the greatest things about Teams and Skype for Business is my ability to join meetings during my commute in a safe way, of course. No texting while driving. But I can listen to a meeting and participate even if I'm stuck in traffic. Right? It's a huge difference to how I feel as I go through my day. Am I constantly behind because I wasn't in that 8 a.m. meeting? Or do I know what's going on because I was able to participate even though I had to drive in? So there are other scenarios here that are included in the Toolkit for Teamwork that talk about all the Office 365 components and their use cases. And we hope that this is going to help all of you to understand what it means to shift your center of gravity to Teams, and as well as get more value out of the other workloads in Office 365. So,
And when can we get this?
you'll be able to get this before the end of the calendar year. Absolutely. So you can look for this, and so there is a, you're killing me. You did that on purpose. You realize you did that on purpose. No, but one of the things I wanted to mention is that you'll be able to find this on the successwithteams.com site. There'll be the download location right there, so we'll make it prominently available through our patterns and practices. All right. Now, for some of you, you're more interested in some of the deeper dive information about the product itself. Let's go back here. And we have another announcement that we are making, and it's about our show. It's called Coffee in the Cloud. And Coffee in the Cloud is a long-form interview show where we bring on people from within Microsoft who are doing this innovation across Azure and Office 365. There are long-form interviews out there about guest access right now in Microsoft Teams, about e-discovery from Ansuman, who I believe is back there in the back, and other folks. And so you can also learn more about getting more business value and really what are the guts of the solutions that we're delivering. So we invite you to go and subscribe to this show, and also you can give us ideas. Give us ideas for what you'd like to hear next as we continue to produce these long-form interviews. So we've got new technical guidance on success with Teams. We have the Teams toolkit that you'll be able to put in your own environment. And then we have information like these events and long-form interviews and Coffee in the Cloud. So we hope that as we put this out and then we tailor it for industry and persona, that you'll be able to get a running start at this digital transformation and make it real for you. Speaking of making things real, we want to make sure that you know that this fast track capability is available for everyone. So if you have more than 150 seats, you can visit fasttrack.microsoft.com, and you can get self-service materials that will help you in this deployment, as well as, if you're a larger organization, actual human beings. They will come and help you plan this, right? You don't have to do this alone. We are in this together, and there are a lot of resources that Microsoft brings to the table to help you make this transition. So this is free of charge. There is no additional charge for you if you have Office 365 licenses to use this service. So we encourage you to take advantage of it at this time. So now, speaking of making it real again, we want to bring on our guests so that we can talk a little bit about what their experiences are in deploying Microsoft Teams and cloud services. So please, Amy and Pune, will you join us on stage? Thank you so much. Fantastic. Can you take a moment and please introduce yourself? Amy, you want to go first?
Hi, my name is Amy Straley. I work for PepsiCo out of Chicago. I am our PepsiCo product manager for Office 365 Collab capabilities.
Excellent, thank you. Pune?
Hi everyone, I'm Pune Kaufman. I'm the Director of Core Services Engineering. We specifically focus on team productivity, so we are driving teams across our organization and very excited about it.
That's great. Well, you know, what's important is people understand it's great when we as Microsoft put out patterns and practices and give people guidance about what we're seeing, but I think what's really most valuable is information from folks such as yourself talking about the real challenges of driving collaboration and productivity. So we've got 4 segments up there that we're showing. And what I'd like you to share each individually, and then we'll take some questions from the audience, is the one thing, if there was one, only one, that you could tell this audience about driving productivity in this kind of adoption path, how you measure success in your organization, both for yourself, your employees, and your leadership team. And one of my favorite topics, managing conflict, right? There are always resistors to change. How do you approach the embracing of them or dealing with that? And then our friends in IT. I get to say that because I used to be in IT. So sometimes, I was commonly referred to as the Department of No previously in my former life. But how do you deal with that in terms of driving this change? So Amy, you want to kick us off, get us started?
Sure, and I am in IT, so
right.
I'm one of those. I would say the one thing, I was listening to you guys and just, enthusiastically nodding about all the things around your key stakeholders, et cetera. For me, though, the one thing was finding what's the it that's going to pull people in, what's the need. And for us with Teams specifically, we know from previous collaboration efforts that at PepsiCo, at least, everybody's about files. I want my library. So we started Teams very much with, this is the place where you can provision your own library for your team. And it has moved from file-focused into now, I think the people that sit around me are probably sick of hearing some of the use cases, but the big, we're getting ready for a meeting, and you get to be the lucky person that has to get all 8 people's changes in a deck, and you have to now incorporate them back. So I use that example a lot, and that resonates with people, and almost immediately our business partners go, ooh, yeah, I like that thought, having it in one place. So for me, the one thing is finding the that's gonna drive them, and you're not just giving them something new to do, you're giving them something that's making their current job better.
That's an excellent point. Pune, what do you think about that?
I would have to agree with Amy. I don't want to go on the same thing, but working at Microsoft, coming in and trying to create excitement and change in an IT organization that has tools at their fingertips and does not realize, how awesome they are. So for me, it was, what is the value proposition? How do we create this excitement and get people on board to be like, there's change. This is gonna really change the way we work. This is gonna make us productive. And move that center of gravity, as Caruana said. How do we do that in an organization that's so huge like Microsoft? And it really has come down to the core of understanding what the value is and what the services we provide for our teams.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How do you both approach measuring success? What defines success for you in your organizations?
We're pushed a lot to show the numbers, right?
Yeah.
How many teams, how many people adopting. So that I would say is our biggest measurement right now, and we just use what comes in the admin pack to give that. I mean, I think there's also a lot of the anecdotal stuff that comes in, but it's really hard to. The numbers, you can't, those don't lie. So that's probably the biggest thing for us.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would have to agree. As far as there's 2 things for me. Measuring success is around capturing the usage, obviously. So we monitor our daily, our weekly, our monthly active users. We present these to our executives to understand what the trends are, as Dan was showing you, what's happening within the other tools that we're using. Personally, myself, I watch myself shift as I came into this organization and saw, I was getting 100 emails a day, and working with teams within 30 days brought my emails down to about 50. So no longer was I going home at night and reading email after email. I was responding real time. I was addressing issues. I was giving feedback. We were actually addressing these so quickly that there was no need at the end of the day. And just looking at those numbers helped us drive adoption. And how do we get that excitement? Again, it's just capturing that momentum. The numbers are very important, but driving it and seeing how it impacts you is even more important. And I'm absolutely a huge candidate.
That's great. The numbers that Pune has access to, you all don't have access to yet.
I was going to mention that.
I'm aware of that. There was a presentation, I think, yesterday about some of the additional updates to the O365 Admin Center reporting, and we are working on more updates, kind of like showing an active user chart, a number of chats, number of teams, that kind of thing for your organization, even kind of team by team, user by user, platform by platform. Another thing I was going to say around measuring success, and I don't know if there's a good metric on this, but it's a little bit what you were saying, Pune. There's a change in the ability to make decisions quickly and in the open. I can't think of a good number other than maybe employee productivity, shareholder value, I don't know, whatever. But there's a palpable difference in the ability for people to reach decisions quickly, share it, have it in the open. Could be maybe the time to onboard a new employee. Could be measured in employee retention, even either within a specific team or within the company overall.
Actually, support tickets. So our engineering team uses Teams to manage support tickets. Not only share knowledge, to be able to immediately communicate out if we have SEV 1 tickets, SEV 2 tickets, and share that knowledge across to immediately mitigate things and get that information out there. So when calls come in,
Yeah.
we have responses to them. And that's helping us too,
Yeah,
because
well-
we're seeing the number of support calls go down, support tickets go down, and organically everyone's responding and giving feedback. And that's what we want. We want these numbers. That's how we create productivity for us. Absolutely.
We had a, in the spirit of kind of things that can be measured, like time to resolution on a support incident, we have one of our customers is one of a very large American manufacturing company. And I think it was their CIO had his team do an analysis, and they determined that Microsoft Teams would shave several percentage points or increase productivity by several percentage points over the course of a day for all employees. That seems trivial, but when you think about the products that they are selling, that means significant cost savings for the consumers who are buying those products. Like every little bit helps there, and a few percent a day is actually very significant in productivity.
There's another vector of managing and measuring success as well to think about, and that's your employee sentiment. So inside Microsoft, we measure the sentiment of various services that are delivered, and that, what we call voice of customer, we actually drive a lot of that through a broad, open public Yammer community. Hearing that feedback also is an important component of understanding how the materials are landing, how the program is working, and getting people to talk about and participate in that. And then the folks who are managing that are inside of teams and able to prioritize new content that they may want to create or issues that they may want to address. So making sure that your users have an open way that they can give you feedback about the experience that they're having is an important component of how you can measure success and how well things are going. But yes, we look forward to all of those adoption reports when they're going to land. Doing your due diligence around measuring adoption and the voice of your own internal users is part of the components of becoming an adoption specialist. And after this session over in Theater 2, I have a session on that adoption specialist capability. And there are basically 6 vectors that make you great at adoption, and this measurement is definitely one of them, for sure. Excellent. Well, let's switch topics and go back to the human component of driving change. There are, as we've talked about, those champions who are on board and ready to go. But how do you deal with the folks in your organizations who don't fit that model and who are very focused on simply doing things the way they've always done things?
I think we have a lot of creatures of habit, and we've had a couple iterations of collaboration tools at PepsiCo, so you really have to get people out of that habit and what it is that's comfortable to them. And again, for me, the biggest thing is showing them how it's actually easier, and showing, obviously, when you've got a tool that's integrated with, the Office suite and the things that they use every day, it's an easy sell. But I think showing them the value of it is usually the quickest way to turn their heads.
Yeah, I would have to agree. And also with that is, because of that, would be changing behavior, right? So we, again, I keep saying this, but I'm new to Microsoft, so it was shocking to me to see some of these changes and throughout, but seeing
You can
people-
actually tell them that we don't always use our productivity tools the way we tell you to use them. That's what she's trying to say,
That was
actually.
one of the biggest shockers for me. I came in here, I was a little intimidated, and then I thought, gosh, they must be using everything. And then I realized, no, they don't. Why? Why aren't they using these amazing tools that they have? So I like to create this excitement with them, but you see this conflict because there are so many tools out there, right? So at some point, everybody's always dog fooding and trying different tools, and they're getting tired a little bit. We're trying to create all these different programs within Microsoft to get success, get feedback, early feedback to ensure we have success. But there's always a little bit of conflict because you're always going to have people that are set in their ways, people that have been here. So in order to change that behavior, we've been really focused on, again, show them how change is and work in the product. And when people are actually not working in the product, redirect them to the product. That's honestly what we've been doing to really create that positive, environment where people are seeing the impact of change and wanting to shift because they're seeing faster response to resolutions, they're seeing faster response to questions. And so if you're showing that immediate feedback, people are going to start slowly adopting. You know, you'll still have a little bit of the stragglers, but eventually we've seen a big shift in our group. We definitely have.
It also never hurts to have somebody at a high level who believes in it and is willing to go out there and put that communication out there.
Very
I think
Especially if they're slightly senior,
Well,
that
yeah.
helps as well. Leading
Yeah.
by example,
Absolutely.
getting the organization, and if the organization has a relatively hierarchical culture, then having a leader who is actually doing that and driving that and being the ambassador, the champion, and the enforcer helps. And if they're, on the converse, if they are not, if that's the one person in the team who's still doing email and expects everything to come in over email, this is not going to happen. It's, you know, maybe pockets here and there, but it's just not going to take off for that particular group.
And that's a wonderful lead into one of my best practices, which I call the listening tour. One of the things that people tend to feel bad about when they're going through this change is being the dissenter. They tend to feel ignored. They tend to feel like we're making them fuddy-duddies, right? There's a lot of psychology that goes into not being the one who wants to change. So I encourage you to take that time one-on-one, especially if you have a senior leader who isn't interested in doing this cloud thing, to go and sit down and talk with them and focus on your listening skills. Don't go into that meeting trying to convince them that you're right. Go into that meeting to actually listen to their concerns and see if you can learn something from them. Opening up and using those listening skills has allowed me to remove a lot of blockers to a lot of projects over time. And it's not something that we're normally taught in IT or in cloud deployment, but making sure that you have those sorts of soft skills or that someone on your team does can be very useful. The second thing about that is creating that internal user community. We have a monthly Office 365 and SharePoint users group inside of Microsoft. We see other people, these champions in different regions, conducting these meetings. And it's a time where people can really come to the table and ask their questions and not feel dumb. That's the other thing about teaching these new tools. People don't want to ask the obvious question. Well, when am I supposed to chat privately and when am I supposed to chat in a channel, right? Simple things like that. So it's important to create a safe space for people to ask those sorts of questions and feel like they're part of a community. My last trick I will tell you is food. Bring food to those meetings. Whatever flavor of food you want. It could be pizza, it could be chocolate, it could be something else, whatever, depending on the time of day, what kind of refreshment you want to bring. But it really is important to create that sense of community. And again, you think it's not important because this is about technology, but again, it's about the people. So when you embrace them in that way and give them a place to share their concerns and be heard, it really helps you to smooth those wheels of transition, for sure. Now, let's talk about IT. Let's talk about IT. We can all do that here, right? We love IT. I love my IT people. They are my folks. But sometimes we are known as the Department of No, and sometimes we tend to talk more about compliance and governance and stopping things rather than embracing and running forward with change. How do you deal with that in your organization?
it's been tough.
Yeah.
So we're dealing with it right now with guest access. We can't get it turned on just yet because our security team's still reviewing. So I've got people every day. When are we getting it? When are we getting it? And it's really difficult. And the biggest thing, we have an Office 365 user group in Yammer, and the biggest thing is just to keep that out there. People will post, Microsoft had this public blog, why don't we have it yet? And just to keep it open and don't let people feel like you're hiding it from them. Hey, this is what we're doing. We're under this review. We're coming. We're hoping. So, for me, it's just over communicate and get the word out that you're not hiding anything.
Right.
It's coming. We're really trying. We want it just as bad as you do.
Yeah.
So,
do you do anything special to work with your security group?
we have a specific enterprise architect who is assigned to collaboration, and so we partner very closely with him, and it's just we're a big company.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of reviews that have to be done
Yeah.
and when you launch anything. So
Yeah, that's true. And of course, some of this guidance is specific to the size of your organization. If you're a smaller organization and you're the one person wearing all of these hats, we'll have specific guidance for you there. And sometimes you have to be cognizant of switching hats from security to adoption to change manager to organizational psychologist, right? In a medium-sized organization, and that can be stressful too. Pune, any thoughts about working with security inside Microsoft?
Well, no. So some of you may or may not know, At Microsoft, we have two big groups, right? So we have our product development group that comes up with all these amazing, innovative ideas. And then we have the internal IT group, that's the core services engineering. And we get to test these ideas after they've released them and make sure that they work within our communities and in our organization before it comes out to you, our customers. And so for us, it's really about the user experience and making sure as we're working with our product groups and within our own internal IT is thinking about the final outcome. How will our customers think about this? What are they going to think if we release these features? And how can we make this experience the best experience possible for them? And so that's kind of what we have to think every day as we're working closely with our product group teams and partnering with them to understand these cool features that are coming out and then understanding the impact. So working with security is a big deal for us, making sure that they're comfortable with these changes, understanding the impacts in the environments, and then how that gets released basically to you and how you're going to deal with it in the future. So for us, it's very, very important. We may be the people that say no, but at the end, we're partnering with our groups here to make sure we have a great product, and hopefully it's all good.
I have a lot of sympathy for IT. On one hand, you've got your legal, chief security officer, et cetera, pushing for all the controls, mitigating all the risks, et cetera. On the other hand, you have users like me who are running our own little shadow IT thing, server under the desk, or unauthorized device on the network, or groups deploying tools like Slack or HipChat or Teams perhaps. And it creates this really tough tension because nowadays it's pretty easy to do a lot of stuff with a phone or with a device. One of my funny stories there is we have a chief security officer at Microsoft, and he was threatening to turn off Teams because we didn't have a particular feature for data classification policies. And it's a fair criticism. Turns out I had bought a condo from him 12 years ago, so I used that as kind of the angle to get a 60-day extension. So there's lots of ways to work with IT. The one thing I would say also is we are trying to add as many capabilities for tuning and controlling Teams and how it gets deployed and configured, and strike that balance so we give enough control to IT, whether it's who can create a group, which is the underlying infrastructure for Teams, the naming conventions on what the prefixes and suffixes and the stop word lists for what can be in a team name, the now user level policies we announced this week, very similar to Skype for Business, so you can choose what particular features or capabilities a user has. And even within the team itself, if you have IT helping to manage the teams, there's a lot of controls over what can and cannot be done by different members of the team. Tie in groups, tie in Azure AD and the guest access stuff. And there's a decent number, it's growing, we need more of controls for IT to manage this.
Absolutely.
Oh, I forgot my pet peeve, group expiration.
Yeah,
I need to beat you up about that. That's a great feature for cleaning up underused groups. It also creates a lot of friction when people don't realize that their group is associated with a team. And so we're trying to do some work to enable team owners to renew their expired groups within Microsoft Teams so they don't have to have that disjoint experience.
Absolutely. Yes, well, I think it's great that in our product group we are showing IT love. We have those features because we know that that's ultimately going to make your adoption experience more smooth. When we can give IT the controls that they need while still delivering that unified productivity experience. So I think that's great. We want to open the microphones up now to questions from the audience. And you can ask questions of any of us here on the stage about the way that we use the tools, our adoption guidance, anything that you may need to know about Microsoft Teams. We are here to answer your questions, so please hit those microphones. All right, someone's coming up over here. Thank you.
So one of the things I noticed when we first started rolling out Teams internally is email's easy. Everyone knows email. They've been using it forever. Skype for Business was easy because it's chat. It interrupts you. Like there's a pop-up you got to deal with. But Teams became oh, you mean there's another thing I have to check? And everybody is nodding. So how did you find you got around that? How did you force people into, okay, now there's a third thing I have to look at and kind of pay attention to?
That's a great one.
Yeah, I think particularly in the context of the announcements we made earlier this week, as you're deploying Teams and working with us on the journey from Skype for Business to Teams, the users who are in Teams, depending on their scenarios, but say Teams is meeting their needs, they can turn off, they can sign out, stop auto-starting Skype for Business. They'll still receive their IMs. If you're using our cloud voice, they'll still receive their phone calls, see their voicemails in Teams, and be able to manage it that way. There's no other really good answer because they're both running there. They're both serving relatively similar purposes in the domain of private chat, and so it is
I was even thinking more in like the group messaging, like using Teams as the chat-centric workspace. Like,
Yeah.
as it's more of a, in that sense, it's more of like we got to get the email traffic diverted over there. But then it's when you have 10 people on a thread and 9 of them are using Teams, and you got that one holdout, then everything kind of starts reverting. So
Right.
that's what we found started happening is that people would revert because the one other person they needed, they're not using Teams, so now nobody can use Teams. So it's like I get the point, like kind of trying to hammer that home, but I guess I'm assuming, like, did you guys have the same kind of challenges, and how do you incentivize checking that third thing?
Well, part of it too is really about shifting that center of gravity. When I moved some of my services and projects to Teams, I was very intentional, and I told everyone on the team, one of my teams has like 400 people in it, this is where we communicate. If you ask me a question about that stuff in email, I don't answer you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've made that intentional, like this is where the center of our communication is, and everybody needs to kind of get on board with that. Of course, it's my project, and I can do that, right? But I encourage those folks and those champions out there to be intentional about that shift for the things that you're doing, especially as you're starting to get that viral motion. So thank you for that question.
We
It's great.
mention people a lot too in our
Yeah.
conversations.
At mention,
you know.
fantastic way to bring people in.
And you get lots of likes, you get lots of people putting likes in there, and then you get that positive feedback just organically, and people start creating images and happy faces. So
It's great.
it's
Thank
all
you for
good.
that question. Let's come to this one now.
All right, hi.
Could you
my
get a little
question-
closer to the mic, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
So my question is more around what to do when you already have moved all of your sites from an on-prem environment to online. Now they're getting really used to modern experiences, modern pages. They're loving it, so we've done a lot of adoption around that. And then here's Teams.
Yes.
So I just completed all that migration a year long, and now I've got to introduce Teams, and what do I do with existing sites, and how do I hook it? And I know I can add a tab, of course, but is there a roadmap that you know of that you can take an existing SharePoint site and connect it to a team and
We
have
just talked
that be
about.
the main site instead of having 2 disconnects?
Yes, yes. So we have those capabilities that are on our roadmap for sure, and there's an interim play as well, right? So the document library can be pinned within the team. So can the home page. Like for instance, the communication site I showed earlier, Toolkit for Teams, that'll be pinned inside the team. So again, then it becomes that conversation about, hey, you've been used to working in modern SharePoint sites. Now bring it all together. The conversation, the site, the document libraries, and all those assets and any other tools on this particular site or topic. But you're going to see that deeper integration with other workloads in Office 365 as time goes on, for sure. We are aware. Thank you for the question. Excellent. Over here.
Hi, my question is regarding how Microsoft is going with geolocation and data privacy. How is it going to be addressed with Teams, especially in Europe?
His question is about geolocation and privacy, and how will Teams address that?
Sure. So the Teams has a number of different services underneath it. Files on SharePoint and OneDrive, so that's addressed the same way that it's handled there. Some of the stuff we do lives in Exchange, and then we have our own chat service for the chat messages in both a private chat and a team chat. We're in the public cloud data centers. We'll shortly be launching some of our sovereign data centers or local data centers in different geographies. The data will be located within there. We don't have yet support for multinational, for kind of geo-replication or geo-distribution of user data within the chat service.
Is it going to be on any kind of roadmap or timing?
Yeah, we actually have a session on compliance and security in Teams where we could talk more about this. It's tomorrow, I think.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I would ask the question there. I don't think we're sharing too many details on the roadmap, but it is there on the roadmap.
Yes, absolutely. Thank
I
you.
have a second question. In regard of integration with Surface Hub, is it something that's coming?
Yes, so the Skype Room systems, Surface Hub, all the meeting room devices, that's part of our roadmap to bring the Skype for Business online services and capabilities and bring those underneath the hub of Teams. And so that's definitely in the long term. The true north goal is to have all those Skype for Business capabilities surface literally, within Teams.
Excellent.
you.
Thank you for those questions. Thank you. All the way down at the end.
Hi, yes. In terms of some research I've been doing with Teams and SharePoint Online, I see that each channel creates a folder in a document library that's a site collection generated. It's also hidden from central admin, which is a little problematic, but it's created there. But as far as metadata, managed metadata, or properties, there doesn't seem to be any support for that, as well as offlining those document libraries or folders within that document library. It looks like OneDrive is kind of being used as a workaround. Is there any other way to work with that?
Yes. So there's a couple of things there. I don't know, I'd have to follow up with you online about the hidden part, but any of the capabilities that existed for managed metadata in SharePoint can still be applied. They don't surface currently in the view you have of the files document library in Teams, but there's an option where you can pop out into SharePoint, and you can use things like Power Apps or Flow to assign that at the time of save. So you can still do that broader scenario to assign that metadata based on even contents in the document, and have that so that SharePoint can then take actions on those documents behind the scenes. And using either Power Apps or Flows, a connector or bots, you can surface that in Teams to create that end-to-end experience. More of that ability to show those additional columns, I believe, is on the roadmap. I'd have to check with the team on that. But even as it is today, right out of the box, I can still accommodate those scenarios.
And the offlining of the
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
The offlining of the documents that are part of that channel, is that coming?
You can sync those documents, yeah. I think your question is, can you sync the documents offline from the channel? Yes, you can use the syncing engine for that SharePoint site. So if I pop out into SharePoint and say sync that library, it will sync those documents to my device, which I did this week actually on the way here, so that I could take my Ignite preparation documents on my device as I hopped on the plane.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
We have a lot of users that want everything they're working on in a team to be open to a different, broader audience at some point. And so we are frequently telling people to use that open in SharePoint. So when you go under Files, just open in SharePoint, and you can do all of those things, like share to more people that you don't want in your team, all of that. We see people doing that a lot.
Exactly. Excellent. Right here.
Hi, you had mentioned naming conventions previously, and I'm wondering how, when you implemented it, do you allow your users to create their own team names, and do you run into conflicts and see a gal sprawl with thousands and thousands of teams being created?
Yeah, so it's a good question. Naming convention enforcement, so prefixes, suffixes, and stop words, is, I believe, in private preview right now for O365 groups all up. We've done the work on our side to enable that, so I think just a short period of time before that will be available publicly. I have a session tomorrow actually with Thomas Binder on how to administer and configure teams, and there's a giant dial you can turn in terms of how restrictive or open you want to be. One of the neat things about the naming convention's capability is you could theoretically let a large segment, if not all, the user base create teams, but feel confident that because of the conventions being enforced, you had some semblance of order about how things were organized or how things were named at least. The other end of the spectrum, of course, you then start saying, hey, let's gate the number of people who can create a team, make it a help desk function, make it just an IT function.
I'm just wondering, is that how Pepsi implemented it? Do you allow all your users to create?
Is that how what? I'm sorry?
Pepsi
We
implemented
do. We
it?
allow all our users. Unfortunately, our AD attributes are kind of a mess, so which hopefully isn't unique to us. So we don't use the automatic naming conventions, but we do. We have a regular audit where I actually go through an audit, but we have a naming convention that we recommend where you go division or sector, team, org, and then team name, some sort of a descriptor, because people start noticing it's going to show up in their global address book, and they start freaking out because maybe I had one called Amy Straley Team, and people tried to send me emails, and now they see two things that pop up. So people learned pretty quickly that they need to be a little more careful with their team names. So we do have that recommended.
And then you go back and audit, and you correct
I audit.
errors. Yeah.
I get a monthly report, and I go back and audit. We don't recommend public groups because we kind of see Yammer as that more of a public space. So teams for us are closed groups. It's work at project teams, and so we also do an audit against who's been creating public teams and go back and make sure that we understand how they're using it. And so, but we audit the naming conventions monthly.
Microsoft IT does the same thing. They have a regular audit process and some scripting that runs to flag those that may have either duplicates or difficulty. So yeah, definitely. Here in the middle.
Hi. Once we all get access to that information in the Power BI dashboard, will the data be there for the past, since general availability? Because the struggle for us has been that it's nearly impossible to get all the information and data and how many users are actually using it. So will we be able to see all that and look at our progress?
That's our goal. It won't necessarily all be in Power BI. There's a couple other options or things we're building around that. Some of that we want to do in-app, actually, for the team owners, in terms of where we want to go with that. But it is our goal that we would be able to provide retroactive. We're not there yet, but it certainly, I understand the request. It makes sense.
Okay, and I heard that that's in a few weeks that we'll get that, at least the Power BI.
The information in the admin center from the session earlier, yeah, that's the timeline for that. There's more that we're doing after that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Hi, at the end.
Hi, I was interested in your deployments. If the positioning of Skype being instant messaging and people expect a response immediately versus one-to-one chat in Teams is a little bit more asynchronous, slightly more like email, is that something that you had to consider and retrain users, or they just cope with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So just to repeat it for the panel, if you didn't hear, he was saying that, the Skype, when somebody's IMing you there, it's instantaneous, but there's some asynchronous behavior in Teams. I actually think that ties personally for me to the mobile device. So I don't have that asynchronous experience in the product, and I know that other people don't as well, because they're using the mobile device, it's on their desktop, they're seeing that notification, and if I ping Dan about something, I usually get an answer right away, unless he's like ignoring me.
Yeah.
But I do think it matters, and that's where notification and presence is important, and our delivery of that unified presence inside of Teams.
Sure, it was more kind of you choose when to email someone out of hours because you don't expect a response, but you wouldn't IM them. Is it socially acceptable to message them in Teams, that sort of stuff? And I know that's a cultural.
Yeah, I do think that it applies most definitely to culture. So yes, in our organization in Microsoft, if I IM you, there's an expectation you'll get back with me as soon as possible. If you send me an email, some delay is acceptable. But I do think it depends on role and what region you're in.
I think it depends on time of day, who the people are, organization culture, local culture. I will send IMs to people at all odd hours, because I've replaced email with IMing, and I do not expect a response. If it's in the middle of the day or I want a response or something, I may put an exclamation point, like a mark it as high importance, or send them 2 in a row or something like that, just to really drive the point home. Caruana, where are you? It's a fair point that because we're trying to move some of that longer latency asynchronous behavior from email into Teams, that some IMs are you expect an instant response, and some you're fine to park it overnight. Devices have off hours built into them now. Some of the device platforms where you can mute your notifications overnight. We're also working in our roadmap about how we can build away from the office hours to mute the notifications.
Thank you.
That's great. So we have about 5 minutes left. I want to make sure that we get the rest of you. I'm going to go down there.
Yeah, we've deployed Skype for Business across our company, Skype for Business Online. We're piloting Teams with several groups, and what we've seen in that case is we're not getting the presence information between those two products. So we get people that are interrupting, who are on phone calls, getting interruptions. Any plans to integrate the presence between those?
Yes, that's one of the first things we're going to be doing with the announcement around Skype for Business Services coming to Teams, is having an integrated, actually an aggregated presence service for Teams and Skype across Office.
Do you have a timeline on that?
I think that was one of the things in these. No, I don't think we said that. Soonish.
Soonish. But that just goes to the point of check the Office roadmap in October. We are updating a lot of these capabilities after we get back from Ignite. So you'll see some of the details about the features we've been talking about on the Office roadmap soon. Right here.
We're in the middle of transition into 365, and we've actually just scoped our project really small to just be OneDrive, Exchange Online, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and so forth. So the question is, we were looking at what other features to enable Teams SharePoint, Skype, or whatnot, is there any particular recommendation in terms of what order you should be doing this thing? Should we be turning on those other features first and then go into Teams? Should we do Teams and then layer on this other functionality later? Is there any particular recommendation, or from experience, what you guys have heard is best?
We definitely have a recommendation around that. I mean, what you're saying, I believe you said you already moved it to Exchange Online?
Yeah, we're in transition.
You're in the transition right now. Okay.
The whole organization will be over by the end of the year.
You're in the perfect position to actually go to Teams first. Those are the customers that we work with from a fast track perspective, because this way you don't have some of the legacy issues you have to deal with having gone to SharePoint first or other workloads, right? You can train your users in that unified experience from the get-go. And they really have a much better time onboarding to Office 365 and understanding things like Planner or Power BI or other pieces, because it's there in that integrated experience. So we would advise you to get connected with Fast Track. They have all of that guidance, but go Teams first, and you will be very happy in the long run with the kind of experience you're able to drive. Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Here in the middle.
Thank you. Hope you can hear me. So we're right in the middle of the implementation of Teams as well, and moving to the cloud with all infrastructure. I'm wondering how PepsiCo dealt with the whole ecosystem around Teams, bots, connectors, the third-party applications. Is it locked down? Did you allow your team owners to connect to whatever they want to do? How did you approach this topic, and what did your IT guys say about, hey, yeah, just bring in Facebook and whatever else?
That's a great, I think all of us can answer that question. So he's asking about how locked down is the developer environment for bots and connectors and what have you?
For PepsiCo.
Specifically for Pepsi. Okay, great. Sorry, I didn't hear that part.
Or did you lock it down?
We allow everyone to create a team, but we don't enable any external connectors. So we do have a very specific security governance where we can have all the tabs, those are all fine, but the connectors and the bots we don't turn on, much to the dismay of a lot of our users.
So if I came and had the perfect connector and this was really, really business critical, is there a process? Did you establish a process to then get it verified?
We have a couple of those situations right now, and in fact we're going to be taking those specific connectors through our governance, but the problem we have, hint, hint, is that you can't turn on onesie, twosie. It's all or none. And so that's one of our big requests right now is let us say, hey, this one, and this one. And if we could get that, then yeah, we'll be able to take each of those through governance and get it approved and have very happy people.
I believe that's coming, actually.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It is coming, actually. Those are that additional granular control from the IT admin perspective will be coming. We've heard that feedback from multiple customers, and that will allow them to start down that path of connectors and bots in a more controlled way that makes them feel more comfortable.
Thank you.
That's great. Last one over here.
Yeah, so this kind of has to do with what he asked. This is more around, it seems like there's a lot of opportunity for external collaboration with teams. I guess the current state of that is kind of my first question, and then I know there's a lot of pushback from our friends at IT and compliance and legal that are concerned probably a lot about what gets shared externally. Can you talk about the features of external teams, and then kind of some, if there's any governance around it?
Do you want to take that? From us, or would you like to hear Amy?
Amy would be great if they had it.
Yes. Do you want to talk about external sharing?
Yeah, sure. So our users want it badly, and we had put in some customizations in SharePoint to allow it, but right now you have to have that custom SharePoint site, and we want it in Teams because we don't allow people to provision SharePoint sites unless it's a team site. So Microsoft recently did release guest access. We haven't turned it on yet because we have some very specific InfoSec rules around what to use, things like whitelisting domains and that sort of thing. So we are like chomping at the bit to get it turned on.
Great.
Yeah. We see a lot of companies going through that right now, and that ability to invite those external guests in a governed and controlled way, we think is going to be a big boon for the experience of collaboration, because right now it's quite complicated. I mean, there's a variety of ways you can do it, even across Office 365, and so bringing those together in a way that can make sense and get through those security hurdles is important.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we've got all the way at the end, last.
Sorry. Where's Teams at and with integration with Flows and CDS and Power App?
Oh, There's a video on that on Coffee in the Cloud. You should go and check it out. We're using Flow extensively and automating several of our own business processes, specifically our known issues list, and it's just a fantastic integration. A little JSON makes the card beautiful inside a chat in Teams. Power Apps can be both initiated from within Teams, and then you can also visualize the Power App status data through Power BI back in Teams. We do that. But check out the Better Together video on Coffee in the Cloud, and it will show you how that's built, and then give us any more questions. But we're continuing to work in that area to bring those things together, because that business process automation is a real sweet spot. All right, well, thank you. If you have more questions, please come up at the end. We thank you for staying with us. We appreciate it, and please fill out your evaluations for those of you who are left. And thanks for coming to our session very much. Thanks both of you for joining as well. Thank you so much.